Hello and welcome into the Cubs on Deck podcast. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Greg Huss, and today I'm joined by Bryan Smith, who I didn't warn. We have a new intro clip there. I did it for the live show. I don't know if you got to tune into that, but yeah, we got a new intro music now.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you told AI to give you some like late 90s slow rap beats, and that's what it came up with, and I love it.
It's kind of what I was looking for. I just went on YouTube and they have like the free like music you can use on YouTube. I was like, oh, that one sounds pretty good. There's a lot of like super techno music, and I'm just like not game for that. If you guys hate this intro music, for you guys tuning in, whether it's on podcast platform or on YouTube, if you hate it, let me know. But decided to change it up a little bit for these episodes moving forward. So yeah, man, we have this is kind of we're back to normal. I know you're back from a trip. I'm back to normal scheduled in terms of days that we're recording this, but it's been kind of a weird last month of shows or so because of the recording dates and the release dates and things like that, with it being the draft, and then had that episode where it was my new prospect rankings, and then went into the trade deadline, where obviously the last episode we released was on a Friday. It was a live show on a Thursday immediately following the trade deadline, then released on podcast platforms the next morning on Friday. And so we're back to like normalcy in the system to a certain degree, with a few new names, but like things we can focus on prospects again, like the established prospects in the organization, you know?
Yeah, it seems like, July's a weird month, I think, being in any organization with how much is going on. And then we had a flurry of promotions that happened at the beginning of August, especially with outfielders in the organization. And, it did feel like it was sort of getting back to the business and getting the guys that are healthy and able to play right now fitted to the right stop.
Yeah, so we saw a group, like you mentioned, a group of promotions. Yeah, I think it was the first week of games here in August. We'll get into some promotion talk at the end of this episode. We're going to be able to dig into players and guys that have caught our eye recently for the first time in about a month or so. We're going to talk about Ariel Armas, who is the catcher up in South Bend. We're going to talk about the new draft picks that have been assigned to an affiliate. That's Kade, Snell, and Kane Kepley have been assigned. And then we're going to dig into some young bats that are in Myrtle Beach in low A that have been absolutely tearing it up to this point. And then, like I said, in with a little bit of promotion talk to finish off this episode and finish off this year. So let's get right into the name that I'm sure you guys assumed would be the first name we talk about on this episode, and that is Ariel Armas, who has been the hottest hitter in the entire Cubs farm system over the past, let's call it like 10 days or so, and has been really, really good for a little over a month at this point.
Our guy, Brendan King, the broadcaster of the South Bend Cubs, was saying in the broadcast yesterday that he did the research and Ariel was the hottest hitter in all of professional baseball, majors and minors. He said second place was Shohei Ohtani. So, yeah, good company he was keeping.
Yeah, so I mean, with Armas, we're coming off of, he was obviously a 2024 draft pick. We have not talked about him, I think, at all on the show. We might have mentioned him in the season preview episodes, but we have not dug into him at all. And it's worth mentioning because of this hot streak, right? He started off the year really, really struggling. The month of May was really rough on Ariel Armas. When he was drafted, there's a lot of hype around his glove and his ability to manage a pitching staff, like all of the defensive things, like defensive wizard behind the plate. And then the hope was that the bat could come around to a certain degree. And we've talked about catchers in that light, draft picks specifically from the Cubs, for the last 5+ years, where it's like you're drafting guys that can help a pitching staff as they climb the ladder from Myrtle Beach all the way up to Iowa. If they can hit enough, their defensive abilities are there to be a backup catcher in the majors. But he's really turned it on recently, and like that's why we're talking about him, not because of his defense necessarily.
Right. Yeah, he was a 5th-round pick last year, and I just did a little video deep dive this morning. Watched, I think, 6 games of his, and He's an interesting one. I mean, the first thing, like, I hadn't watched him super closely the first couple months of the year, and the thing that jumped out to me, he is skinny for a
Yeah.
catcher. He is he must be one of the more thin waisted catchers in all of pro baseball. I wrote down in my notes he looks to me physically like Miles Mastroboni, and I looked it up after I was done watching film, and they are literally the same height and weight. So if you want to picture what he looks like in your mind, if you're not watching on MILB TV, he looks like Miles Mastroboni, a little skinnier in the waist, a little thicker in the shoulders and legs, but it's about that build.
Yeah, and I have been, for what it's worth, I have been impressed. I'm always quick to preface that defensive notes are hard to come by. Like it's hard to judge defense in the minor leagues. It's a little bit easier with catchers than like say like a left fielder. But I had been impressed from what I'd seen because I tuned into several South Bend games to watch the pitcher specifically. I wasn't tuning in to watch Ariel Armas necessarily, but I was watching the pitcher and they were working with Armas, and I came away pretty impressed with his defense. I know that there's a lot of hype surrounding his bat in spring training, which kind of stood out and was surprising to me. There was a lot of comments about how good he was performing down there in spring, and I kind of wrote it off as okay, like we weren't expecting him to be a good bat, and it was probably just a hot spring. But now that I know you posted some stats recently in the 1060 West Discord channel of like his last, 42, 43 games. And over that time span, he's been, I'm trying to pull up the numbers
Yeah,
here.
it's like it's close to an 800 OPS over
Yeah.
that time since the start of June.
And that's not necessarily a small, I mean, it's small-ish,
all.
right? But since the beginning of June, that's a decent enough sample size to kind of stand out, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's essentially it's a third of his season now. I mean it's more than half of his current season, and if we sort of project out to the end of September, it's going to be a third of his season as a rock solid hitter. I would say what jumped out to me on video was for a guy who's not super big, I think he uses the ground well, and that's where a little bit of power comes from. Is he digs in, gets in a real knee bend, and I think the whole sort of purpose of that swing is to get uh, into the ground, and then he has low hands and he's sort of hitting up on the ball. He's got a high fly ball rate and doesn't hit many ground balls. Um, and then I think he's really good he covers the outside of the plate really well in terms of how he sees it. When I was watching guys that were trying to get him to chase sliders off the plate, he puts that bat down. He doesn't think about those pitches. And if a guy throws a good fastball right at the outside corner, he's taking it and sort of tipping his hat. So almost like Christian Franklin was with high pitches, where he just sort of decided, I'm not going to get tempted by those anymore. It almost looks like Armas is like that on outside pitches because he's a pull hitter. He's looking to do damage pull side. So he's looking for something, not outside corner and out. Anything else is what he's looking for.
And it seems like a lot of the tweaks that he's made have been fairly small for the most part. Maybe several tweaks, but a whole bunch of smaller ones between May and now. And also, it could be a thing where like he's also in his first full season as a Cubs prospect, as a professional baseball player. Right? He made his debut last year in 2024 and got sent to South Bend, sent to High A out of the draft when he was drafted out of San Diego. And that was kind of interesting from a catcher, I think, from that standpoint, to be assigned all the way up to High A South Bend. But then him returning there this year, struggled again. Now has been pretty good. He's still, as far as age wise, matches where he should be, especially for a catcher. He's basically right at league average age for for hitters. He's 0.3 years younger than league average actually in the Midwest League. So nothing stands out as far as like, oh, he's beaten up on younger competition for the most part. Like he's beaten up on competition that's been his age and gotten his slash line up to this point over the course of the season back up to 688 OPS, which obviously is not great, but considering how down he was at the beginning of the year, he was batting like, I think at one point, like 172 in May is what his batting average was. And so to get the batting average now up to 232 in a few months is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think he's a top 30 prospect yet in the organization. He's not quite a part of that discussion for me, but I think there's a huge success in the fact that this hot streak probably locks up the fact that he starts next season in Double A.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're sort of already progressing up the ladder there means that you're not very far from sort of being in conversations. And I think, where you're projecting him right now, ultimately in the majors, being a, sort of lower physical projection, limiting the ceiling guy is sort of the backup catcher realm. But, you know, guys can make a lot of money. Guys can have long major league careers in that sort of role. And I think that that's what he's building towards. And, that's an exciting thing for the Cubs. I mean, that was a 5th round pick that they didn't spend a ton of money on, that, they drafted mostly because his arm behind the plate is fantastic. But you get that guy to be able to hit pitching at the high A level really well, and then be in Double A in his, second full season. That's a success in and of itself. And, we'll see if he's able to sort of keep that going and continue to make contact at a high rate in Double A, but he's getting there.
Yeah, I also probably wouldn't have him as a top 30 prospect in the organization, but I think that like it's telling how good he's been. In May, I wouldn't have had him as a top 60
50,
prospect in the organization, just because when you're a guy batting 172 in high A, like you're not drawing a whole lot of eyeballs at that point. But the fact that this hot streak has kind of bumped him up into being the lead on this podcast is pretty telling. You know what I mean? And so, it's what really. I mean, he's been good for a while now, but like the thing that really stood out this past week is he had 11 straight plate appearances without getting an out. I think he had 1 home run, a few doubles in the mix, several singles, and a few walks. But 11 straight plate appearances without making an out is outrageous, no matter what level you're doing it at.
Totally.
All right. You want to move on to what do we have next? Let's talk about those draft picks from this year, right? Cade Snell and Kane Kepley were assigned to affiliates. We got Kane. Oh, I'm gonna struggle with it. Kane and Kade. Okay, Cade Snell is an outfielder. He was drafted in the 5th round of this draft. He played at Alabama after previously playing at a JUCO and at Auburn. He was assigned to South Bend this past week. What did you see from Cade Snell first that stood out? Good gracious, man. I'm going to struggle with this. It's going to be rough. Cade Snell, what you like? What you don't like?
Yeah, I mean, South Bend as his first assignment out of college is awesome. I mean, he's a little older for a draftee, but he's not particularly old for the Midwest League, and he started off really well and has slowed down quite a bit. I think the last couple games doesn't have a hit, but what impressed me was, he definitely comes off as that hard-nosed gamer type. He also has a really nice blend of he's got some obvious strength when you watch him, but he also like moves well and has some athleticism. So he sort of checks enough boxes to sort of have some potential to move up the system. His swing itself is real busy. His hands are moving the entire time and before he gets his swing going. I mean, they go from high to low to high again. They're active. And so I would imagine the Cubs are going to make some tweaks and quiet some things down and try to find a way to just sort of get into a proper position and hitting a little more frequently. But I mean, when he had a triple, one of his first, I want to say maybe his second or third game.
Yep, second game.
He hit a triple to the right center gap and showed really nice speed. I mean, it did not look to me off the bat like a triple at all, and he got from second to third really quick, and that was impressive. Of course, like they talked about in the post game, he's the helmet fly off type of guy where it's just going to be, he's going to bring emotion to his team, and he seems like a really fun character. Has just an incredible Southern accent that is already, I think, the best in the system, and he's going to be an easy one to root for, and we will see if there's quite enough of any skill to be sort of a carrying thing for a prospect. I don't know if there'll be enough power. I don't know if there's enough sort of bat to ball, but there's a lot to like.
Yeah, I mean, I think I identified Cade Snell as my favorite pick during our draft recap episode, and not favorite pick from the standpoint of I don't think he's better than Ethan Conrad, the first round pick that we had this year, but there's just a lot of things that he does well, and like you mentioned, I think he's a corner outfielder with, I don't know if the pop's there to have enough pop to be in the corner outfield. I don't know if the bat to ball skills. He's not a center fielder for sure, but there's a lot of skills that I really like there. If you're looking at his stance and his swing, it's not the same. But if you're watching Pedro Ramirez in Double A this year, they if you put them side by side, they're not the same stance and load and everything. But like they kind of go about it in the same way, where Kade starts really like upright in his stance, and then ends up, like you mentioned, the bat is moving, like the hands and the bat is moving constantly, and then he kind of gets more into a little bit more of a crouch, not quite as extreme as what Pedro Ramirez does, where he like literally crouches his entire body after standing straight up. But it's the same general vibe where it's like there's a lot of movement going on. And I think if they calm that down a little bit, then and simplify the stance and the load and everything, then there might be even more bat to ball there than we saw during his time in college. So yeah, I mean, it was really fun to watch him double. It was kind of a hustle double in his first game, and then a hustle triple in his second game, and that's really fun. And like you said, for him to be assigned to High A, to South Bend out the gate at just what is he? He's 23, right? He was a I guess a fifth year senior. Like I said, he had pitched at Auburn, then transferred to JUCO, ended up being a hitter only at Alabama, where he just put up outrageous numbers in the SEC. And I think a lot of people were, as we kind of transitioned this into Kane Kepley, were interested in why Cade Snell, a fifth-round pick, was assigned to South Bend, while Kane Kepley, a second-round pick, was assigned to Myrtle Beach. I think my answer, it varies in a lot of different ways, but like I guess my simplest answer is that a lot of times you just kind of look at like the level of competition these guys face during their time in college, and that's how you can, and a combination of that and their age, and that's where they can kind of get assigned. We see that a lot more with pitchers than hitters, like having that conversation. But Cade Snell spent a couple years hitting in the SEC, in the best baseball conference in the country. He's already 23 years old. It kind of makes sense for him to be assigned to High A, versus Kane Kepley was a guy that, yeah, he spent his last year in the ACC at North Carolina. Obviously, the ACC is a terrific baseball conference as well. Kane's a little bit younger than Kade and spent most of his time before that at Liberty, which is, I think, Conference USA, maybe Sunbelt now, a smaller baseball conference. And so, like, that's kind of why I envision those two guys went to their two different affiliates. So far, Kane Kepley has looked pretty damn good. Like Kane Kepley honestly has looked exactly how I expected Kane Kepley to look during his first 4 or 5 games in the system. He's kind of done he's done the hustle thing. He's got hit by pitches. He's gone as a lefty hitter, he's shot some balls in between shortstop and third base. He's gotten dirty every single game. He stole home. He made a diving catch in right field right after making a sliding catch in right field. The arm wasn't super great. The power isn't showing off yet, but like everything that I pictured Kane Kepley to be is kind of exactly what he showcased in the first 5 days.
Yeah, as far as like what you said about assigning these guys to levels, I'll point out 2 things. I mean, you mentioned the 2 years in the SEC versus 1 year in the ACC. That turns out to be 428 plate appearances for Snell in the SEC against 309 in the ACC for Kepley. So not a huge difference, but you're talking 2 years versus 1 year. So another extra year of sort of coaching at that level. The other thing that I might point out is, Kepley played his college ball in North Carolina. And so if you sort of have a pretty even choice there, why not let a guy get comfortable in a place where it's very likely he's going to run into some North Carolina fans in Myrtle Beach, out by the water on vacation, that are going to give that little extra bit of confidence. I think that makes for an easy choice. I wonder if they'll both start next year in South Bend, or if Snell can work his way up to Knoxville. That's something to watch. Kepley has, you nailed it. He is like the slap opposite field hitter that you can just imagine from the Tony Campanas of the past, but he has some strength to him. So it'll be interesting to see. It seems like what he wants to do is see the ball for as long as possible before committing to a swing. And, I wonder if the Cubs are going to try to move that ball forward a little bit and try to make that contact point come out a little bit to see if they can get any use of the muscle that he does have and try to get a few more, sort of pull side doubles. That's something to look for, but, I think he'll be able to make it pretty far up the minor league ladder by just being a guy that's a pest that's hard to get out.
I think it was his first game that he got hit by the first pitch this week,
Yeah.
and he got hit by the pitch and just sprinted down to first base. It's like that's very college baseball of him, but also I think that's just very him, right? Like
Yeah.
where he's just kind of all out. So I'm going to throw some names out here, and I'm I'm always careful about throwing player comps because I'm not comping Kane Kepley to these players necessarily, just like what he reminds me of in various different ways, be the playing style, the way they hit, just things like that. So like I'm not saying Kane Kepley is this dude, or we should put these expectations. Just to preface there, the way that like when I'm watching him play and the emotions that I get while watching him play, outside of it's when I'm watching Pete Crow Armstrong play. I'm not saying that Kane Kepley is going to be a MVP caliber player at the major league level, but like when you watch Pete and you're just like, oh man, I'm just fired up for some
He
reason. I'm
creates an
fired up.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's this energy that he plays with that I get while watching Kane Kepley that I also get with PCA. Also, we made some comparisons where like I was like it kind of at the time of the draft, drafting Kane Kepley reminded me a little bit of just a 5 rounds earlier version of Brett Bateman, who the Cubs have in the system in Double A right now, and I still stand by that a little bit while watching him play.
Sure.
The
Yep.
other name that I threw out in the Discord channel recently on why I think I like Kane Kepley so much so far is there's quite a bit of DJ Artis in him as well, right? Like DJ Artis and Kane Kepley both spent a lot of time, a couple of years, a few years at Liberty. They were both center fielders for Liberty. They're both smaller dudes. They both have some good bat to ball abilities. They both have really good on base skills, right? DJ Artis had the ability to draw a ton of walks. Kane Kepley takes all these hit by pitches like
I was
a
going to say they
madman.
both like to
Yeah.
get hit by balls.
Yeah, they both can play some good outfield defense. Like both don't have great arms. Like there's a lot of DJ Artists, and I loved watching DJ Artists play, and both posted absurd numbers in college as well. Even some that made us think about how they would perform professionally when it comes to their power numbers. I was kind of hoping that DJ Artist would end up outperforming his size in terms of power. Obviously, that never came to fruition. I'm hoping that Kane Kepley can in terms of like because you mentioned like he's small in terms of height and like, but he's got a little muscle there, man. Like I think
sure.
there might be some power, but it's going to take a change in mindset, like you said. Like he likes to see the ball as deep as possible into the zone. That doesn't lend itself well to being good as far as power goes. So it's going to be a change of mindset, less or more so than a guy just bulking up a crazy amount because he does have some strength already.
Let me throw one other name out at you that we didn't necessarily plan for, but part of this outfield carousel that made room for Kepley and Myrtle Beach was Leo Espinosa, moved up to South Bend this week. And as I was watching Armas tape and I was watching Snell tape, and I got to tell you, I almost came away from that experience feeling like Espinosa was the best of these 4 guys that we've talked about so far. I loved the tape that I watched on him this week. His first, I think it's his first 5 games before today, he did not strike out. His first 5 games in high A. He struck out today, but got on base 2 more times. He's off to a fantastic start. He's really impressive. He's got some physicality to him. He's faster than sort of I gave him credit for in the past. He beat out a ball that I was watching in one of the games this week that I didn't think there was any way he was going to beat out. He's a good one. He's a guy that I think I would consider towards the end of a top 30 right now, and a guy that could continue climbing up the list, I think.
Hop on board the Leo Espinosa bandwagon. I was shocked that Leo Espinosa was assigned to Myrtle Beach out the gate this year. I was honestly, as we're sitting there, I know you probably already started kind of crafting up your depth charts for next year, for opening day next year.
Yep.
And as I was sitting there throughout the last offseason, kind of planning out who would be assigned where, it never even crossed my mind that Leo Espinosa would find himself back in Myrtle Beach. I just assumed that he would be back in South Bend. I'm looking at his numbers from last year in Myrtle Beach, and he posted great number. He posted an OPS above 800 in Myrtle Beach, which is nearly impossible to do last year. He, according to my Bash metric, he had a 128 Bash, which was top 5 in the system last year. Obviously, just 254 plate appearances, but like a top 5 Bash in the entire system last year.
Yeah,
I thought he was really good. He was about league average age last year, and then they went and assigned him back to single A, to Myrtle Beach this year. And I was just really confused by that. I thought that he got up to a rough start this year in Myrtle.
He did.
The first month and a half or so was pretty rough. But if you're thinking about the human perspective of this, if he was in even remotely the similar mindset as I was, he was thinking he was going to go to South Bend to start off the year. And for him to get the news that he's going back to Myrtle Beach, that probably messes with him a little bit, I'd imagine, like mentally, right? It messes with your focus, gets you down a little bit. And so I don't blame him for struggling for that first month and a half. Since then, he's been, once again, like he was last year, the most consistent hitter in that Myrtle Beach lineup, day in and day out. And so, yeah, I love that he finally got assigned up to South Bend. I was hoping by this point this year that he'd be sniffing a promotion up to Knoxville. Obviously, that has kind of gone by the wayside at this point. But yeah, man, I think Leo Espinosa is good. I think he can play all three outfield positions pretty well as well. I'm all about Leo Espinosa. I think that's. I'm glad you brought him up.
Yeah, it's I think if you have a hitting development team that's doing what they should, a talent like Espinosa should continue to progress forward. He should be able to hit for more power than he's currently hitting for. They should be able to help him guide there. He's already shown, his strikeout rate in Myrtle Beach was not exactly low. It was probably somewhere around league average, but to then go to high A and only strike out once in your first 6 games shows that there's some bat to ball skills. So this is a player that they should that has enough skills that they should be able to do more with. And I'm excited to see what his 2026 has. He's definitely on the breakout prospect list.
If you know this off the top of your head, then I'm amazed. Any chance that you know if he's Rule 5 eligible at the end of the year?
I don't.
Okay. My thinking is not from a Major League Rule 5 draft standpoint, but I'm thinking about when we go into the Rule 5 draft, obviously you have to make protections, add guys to the 40-man roster to protect them from the Major League phase of the Rule 5 draft. You also have to add a guy to a reserve list for the AAA level to be protected from the minor league phase, which is, those rules are much like, if you draft a player in the minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft, they're just on your team, in your organization. You don't have to return them at any point, no matter what the circumstance is. And I think that if he is Rule 5 eligible, I don't know if he is, but he's a guy you got to protect. I look at Leo Espinosa as a guy that any team would be more than happy to select in the minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft and put him in AA to start off next year, in the way that, some examples of minor league Rule 5 guys the Cubs have gotten, like they got Hayden Cantrell is the guy that stuck a little bit more than most. They drafted him a couple of years ago. He's still in the organization in AAA. And so I could see any organization doing that with Leo Espinosa and putting him in AA and AAA for the next few years and being just fine.
Yeah, and to confirm, he is eligible. So yeah, the Cubs having him on that AAA list will be important.
I think so too. So okay, let's go to the Pelicans hitters, because they are the Myrtle Beach Pelicans are hot. The Birds are hot. They are. I don't have their record in the second half pulled up in front of me right now. They are first in their division. I know we talk about the players more than the team itself, but this team, looking at the Pelicans in the first half of the season, this is not even the same looking team in the second half. And they're blowing out everybody as far as their run differential in the second half. They have been truly terrific. And it's been a combination of both hitters and pitchers. We've seen some really good pitching performances across the board, especially in the second half. Led by Justin Florentino keeps getting outs. I know we weren't planning on talking about him. He keeps getting outs. No matter how hard he's throwing, he's still getting outs. So that's fun. But we're here today to talk about the hitters, because I've got on my list here, I've got 5 dudes that are pretty regularly in the Myrtle Beach lineup that are all posting an OPS above 800 so far since the All-Star breaks in the second half of the year.
And you mentioned that, that they're playing much better recently. A lot of times that happens because you get a bunch of new guys that come in and crush. And I think what we're going to talk about are guys that have been here all year that have just sort of turned the page. So you read the list of names. Yeah.
So Ty Southisene, Angel Cepeda, Matt Halbach, Alexey Lumpuy, and Christian Olivo, all 5 guys that have been in Myrtle Beach the entire season long. Yep, all of them. Ty Southisene was a little bit late call it, but essentially the entire season long. And since the All-Star break, have posted an 800 or better OPS. And some of those guys, I point out Ty Southisene really all Halbach was hitting all right in the first half of the year. The other four dudes were not playing well at all.
At
Ty
all.
Southisene could not get an extra base hit to save his life. Alexey Lumpuy, after having a lot of hype going into the season, just really, really struggled. No matter how athletic he looked, he was still struggling at the plate to start off the campaign this year. Have any of those guys stood out more than others for you?
Yeah, I have to say when Southisene, when I first saw Southisene in spring training, and then his first little time in Myrtle Beach, I was not particularly a fan. I think that I just didn't see enough projection to sort of understand um, some of the hype behind his selection, behind some prospect rankings that other places have, and I think in his last 30 games, for example, he's hitting 333 with a 481 on base, 373 slug. But then I can tell you when we have our end of year podcast and we give out awards, best defensive infielder, I'm going to give a lot of thought to Ty Southisene. He's really good out there. He can make plays to his right, to his left, really, really well. And the fact that he's watched a lot of pitches, and I think when he got to Myrtle Beach, he was so passive that he was ending up behind in the count and sort of getting into that two strike approach, and it wasn't going well. And I think he sort of found that balance of he's still walking a ton, but he's aggressive enough that it's sort of impacting his numbers a little better. I'm impressed. I sort of see the case now for him way more than I did in the past, and as a stubborn person, that's not easy to admit.
It's still the case now, but a couple weeks ago, Ty Southisene had one of the funniest stat lines that I've ever seen in my 10, 12 years of doing that, of following Cubs prospects. He had again, I'm going off the cuff here, but he had nearly as many walks as he had hits. He had it was like 25 stolen bases and only like 40 hits all year. It was absurd, and he had like 4 extra base hits. It was just crazy numbers.
I want to say his second extra base hit didn't come till his 50th game or something.
Yeah, it was. I remember people asking me about him. I was like, I have no idea what to make of Ty Southisene. I don't understand what he's doing at the plate. I don't get it. I don't get how he's walking so much, not hitting for extra bases, and then when he does get on base, he's still in second and third. It was crazy what he was doing pretty early on, and he's more well-rounded now than he was at the beginning of the year for sure, and you can see that clear as day. But it's still he's still got to grow into some power. Obviously, that's still got to happen. And I don't think that Ty Southisene is a super skinny, lanky guy. He's definitely a small guy, but he's not a skinny, lanky guy. So I think that he can figure out how to hit for a little bit more power. Get him out, as always. Get him out of Myrtle Beach before you make some conclusions about any guy's true overall power. But he's also very fun to watch play baseball.
He is, yeah. The next guy I think that jumped out for me is Angel Cepeda. Was a guy that I think he's the best prospect of this group. Yes. I think I'm gonna have him probably close to 15 the next time I put names together, and he's moving in the right direction. He has a ton of swing and miss right now. The red flag right now is very obvious. He strikes out on the majority of good breaking balls he sees. High fastballs are a problem. How this hit tool evolves is going to ultimately decide how he is as a prospect. But he's really started to find some power lately. I want to say he hit a homer that was it 109 miles per hour off the bat?
Yeah. Over the bleachers in left field. In Myrtle.
So as a guy who can stick at shortstop for a while longer, I would think nothing I'm seeing there suggests otherwise. To be able to hit that number just shows that you're worthy of some excitement, and the fact that he's just starting to get it a little bit is exciting, and just reaffirms where we all have him loosely ranked in the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he that homer that he had, that 109 over the left field bleachers, the swing reminded me a lot of Jefferson Rojas.
I was
just
it
was just super balanced. It reminded me a lot of Rojas. I'm not going to rank him as the top 3 prospect in the organization, but yeah, I mean, he's really turned things around. Still only a 221 batting average this year. Still not slugging over the course of the season, 337, but it's the strikeout rate, 33% strikeout rate over the course of this year is really high, and it was about 5% higher a couple months ago. Still got a bash at 109, which is top 15-ish in the Cubs organization. So yeah, Cepeda has stood out quite a bit to me.
And by the way, when you mentioned that slugging, just to provide the context, I mean, that league is having a real slugging problem this year. I mean, that has always been a pitcher's league, and Myrtle Beach is a pitcher's park. But I bet that this is the lowest average slug. I think the league average slug is 329 this year. 329, lower than the league average on base of 332. That makes for a sub 100 isolated power average in the league. I have to imagine that has not happened in that league in the 2000s. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's so you say a 337 slug for Cepeda or something like that. That's above league
nice.
Average.
337 slugging is like, oh, good job. This is good.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a really weird league this season, and that sort of needs to impact the way that we think about all these guys.
You know that the Southern League, the AA Southern League, their league OPS is lower than the low A Carolina League this year.
Really?
Southern League OPS is 657. Carolina League is 661. Wow. Which is wild. I think that's right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bigger story that we could talk about down the road of just, how far pitching is ahead of hitting in the minor leagues. That's sort of an issue, but that's probably a conversation for another day.
Yeah, I'm looking at, I have the OPS for all four Cubs affiliates, and the International League in AAA is just like, it's 60 points ahead of the Midwest League, and then a full 100 points ahead of the Southern League and Carolina League. It's crazy.
Yeah. And another reason that these guys are doing really well that is just a product of the way the minor leagues works is that all the pitchers that were having so much success at the beginning of the year in the Carolina League have moved on to high A. And so they're now facing a level of competition that's way more appropriate for where they are as hitters. It's almost like they all sort of got demoted in a way from low A to short season league, and they're just but that's where they belonged in the first place, and they're having the success that we expected at that level.
I'll point out one more player from this group, and that's Alexey Lumpuy, who's been riding one hell of a heater over the past few weeks. Like, he's been really, really good. I know I mentioned the fact that he was there's a lot of buzz surrounding, because I think that, oh man, was it Banner? Somebody came out in an interview preseason during spring training. I think it was Jared Banner, and specifically called out Alexey Lumpuy as a guy to watch. And I think that it caught everybody off guard. Like, it caught us as prospect nerds off guard, where he mentioned Lumpuy, and we're like, what? Like, he could have mentioned so many different players, and I was shocked that Lumpuy was the guy mentioned. And so there's a little bit of hype surrounding him entering the season. Struggled, has been really, really good recently. I don't have a whole lot to say. I mean, we mentioned that he's a freak athlete. He's starting to turn on the ball a little bit better. He went out to left field on a homer a couple days ago, I believe, and that's not easy to do from the left side of the plate in Myrtle. And so if you're way too early looking for a breakout pick in 2026, if you're into that sort of thing, Lumpuy might be your guy entering the 2026 season. I don't know if he'll be in Myrtle or in South Bend to start off the year, but like, if you wanna go out on a limb for a player, that might be your guy to do it.
Yeah, I think he'll find a way into my top 30. I think he's the twitchiest player in the system, probably, or at least he's close if he's not the top, and has some wiry strength to him on top of being a phenomenal defensive outfielder from the games that I've watched. And so, yeah, I'm a fan.
All right, you want to talk about some promotions? We saw last week some promotions across the board. We got, oh man, I'm putting myself on the spot now. We got Carter Trice called up to AA. Obviously, Leo Espinosa, which we talked about. Kate Snell was assigned to South Bend. We got King Kepley up to Myrtle. And then, my boy Parker Chavers was bumped up from AA to AAA to fill a need that was on that roster when Greg Allen was released. So there's a little bit of movement last week. I want to open it up to you if you have anybody in mind that, as we're basically at about a calendar month left, or about a month left of the season. for the minor league levels. Obviously, the AAA season ends last. The AA season ends a week prior to that, and then the single A levels end 1 week prior to that, not including postseason action, obviously. And this last month can be really important for some players to get a taste of certain levels, whether that's, hey, they've killed it at the level they're at right now, they deserve a promotion, or the team needs to see what they have prior to making some roster decisions, whether they're becoming a minor league free agent or a potential Rule 5 pick, or just preparing a guy. Like we've seen this time and time again where, hey, it helps for a guy to get a cup of coffee at that level he's going to start off the 2026 campaign at. So is there anybody that stands out in particular to you that deserves or needs to be promoted up right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think they need to do some pitching reshuffling in the org right now. I think, I losing Sam Armstrong and Ryan Gallagher from the AA team, I think should be able to create enough momentum. So I'll throw out a handful of promotions on the pitching side, and we can stop wherever we want. But Arian Rodriguez is a guy that's now been in High A for more than a year. Absolutely needs to move up to AA. He's throwing like 60% sliders when I watch him, maybe even more. To High A hitters, that's just, he's never gonna get challenged enough for it to really matter. I mean, he'll have bad starts along the way, but he needs to have hitters that are going to challenge the approach he has at a way higher level. So that's an obvious one. I would say on the low A side, to replace Arian and South Bend, pick either Justin Florentino or Ethan Flanagan. Both of those guys are dominating the low A level. Flanagan actually just had his worst start of the season, but that doesn't matter to me. Both of those guys I would move to South Bend. Evan Aschenbeck, I would move to AA. I think I would do it as he's probably at a real high innings total, so I'd probably do it as some sort of reliever, give him a 2 or 3 innings relief role there.
I think that if you do that, if you call him up to relieve up in AA for the last month of the season, I think that also you can limit his innings a little bit, but you can also see like, hey, let's see that stuff start to tick up a little bit. Like maybe that's not necessarily his role long term as being a reliever, but like we know that the stuff is not exactly super sexy, whether it's the fastball or the off speed. And like if you throw him in the bullpen for just a month, it's like, hey, go let it eat, man. Like go spin it a little extra. Let's
get some data on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And then, if we needed a AA guy to move to AAA, Antonio Santos has been in AA for so long and just carves up the level. I don't really understand what's happening there. And then I would put Tyler Schlafer up in AAA for the rest of the season if there was this. I'd have to think about if there's a spot there, but he's a minor league free agent at the end of the season, and so it's now the Cubs' job to convince him to come back to the organization next year. To re-sign with the organization. I think to do that, a good way to build that sort of trust within that relationship would be to say, hey, we see what you're doing in AA. We're going to give you one more boost. We're going to see how it looks in AAA. And I think Tyler can probably hang there. He's really taken a step forward and can do it. So all of those guys, I just threw 6-7 names out. I would make mass pitching adjustments in the system.
Yeah, I'll throw in a few extra names. You hit on a lot of the guys that I like. I'd like to see Grant Kipp called up to AAA in kind of the same way as Evan Aschenbeck, where I'd like to see him called up to AAA and thrown in the bullpen. Just let it eat for the next month or so for him. I think that's really it from that we've kind of covered from the AA level up to AAA. In South Bend, I need to see Christian Hernandez promoted up to AA. I know that he's not absolutely lighting the world on fire offensively, but we've long established how good he is defensively and on the bases and stuff like that. I think he's had back-to-back. We're recording this on Sunday afternoon. I think he's had back-to-back games with home runs, one to the opposite field. He's Rule 5 eligible. He is Rule 5 eligible this offseason, and there are Major League Rule 5 Major League Rule 5 questions about Christian Hernandez entering this offseason. I feel like you got to call him up to AA and just see how he looks and see what that decision ultimately ends up being. I lean right now. I think that they might not add him to the 40-man roster. As weird as it sounds, if you would have asked me that, 3 years ago, that sounds wild. I probably wouldn't at this point, but I'd have to look deeper into the names. We'll cover that at some point here once the offseason probably hits. But that's going to be important for me, is seeing what he has. I think that's from the single A level in Myrtle Beach up to South Bend. Matt Halbach is a guy that he just, I don't think he belongs in Myrtle Beach. I know, again, like he's been hot recently. I just covered that he had a OPS over 800. I just think he needs to be in South Bend. He's a college draft pick from a year ago. Cole Mathis, once he returns, I know he's playing games down in the Bridge League, or it's not the Bridge League, the Continuation League down in Arizona right now. Once he returns, I don't want to see him go to Myrtle Beach. I want to see him up to South Bend. I know he didn't perform super well, but those college bats, I need to see them up in South Bend in the year. And then one other name I want to throw out is Jose Escobar as a hitter down in Myrtle Beach that has had kind of a weird year, a little bit of a Leo Espinosa type of year where slow start, he turned it on a little bit, not showing a whole lot of power, but I do think he has power in that bat. So I'd like to see him out of Myrtle Beach in the year in South Bend. So I think that's my list.
Yeah, I like it. I would say that as far as Christian Hernandez goes, I made a argument on the Discord the other day. If I was in charge of a team that was going to be really bad in 2026, I would absolutely consider drafting Christian Hernandez in the Rule 5. I think, he would have so little success in the big leagues in 2026 that he would probably help you be bad, but he also does enough things well that like a manager could talk himself into a role for him, right? Like late inning pinch runner, a guy that could probably pinch hit against a lefty late in a game, picks it enough at shortstop that I think he's gonna like broadly help. I mean, he's gonna make some silly mistakes, but he sort of looks the part. So to me, that's a guy I would consider drafting him in the Rule 5 if I was a bad team, more than I would consider drafting James Triantos. And that, I know that sounds weird to say because Triantos is way more prepared to succeed in the big leagues than Hernandez, but I think if you're looking at a specific team, the type of team that makes Rule 5 selections, I think that the untapped upside of Hernandez would be more appealing to me.
This might be a little galaxy brained, but I think that if you're drafting James Triantos in the Rule 5 draft, you're drafting him with the hope that he can help your team. Right. He can like actually be a positive contributor, positive WAR type of player
right away
at the major league level next year. If you're drafting Christian Hernandez in the Rule 5 draft, you do not care what he does at the major league level, right? Like if a team drafts Christian Hernandez, the Cubs aren't getting him back because they don't care. He could hit 0.50, like he hit 0.49 over the course of his major league season next year in 2026, and they would not care because that's not why they're drafting him. They're drafting him to then probably assign him back down to the minor leagues in 2027, continue his development, and then turn him into some sort of a high upside type player. So yeah, no, I'm with you with Christian. That does make sense.
Yeah.
All right. I warned you. I gave you a brief warning in advance. The last thing I do want to talk about on this episode is with about a month or so left of the season, we have got a tight race for Cubs minor league hitter of the year between three guys in AAA. You got Moises Ballesteros, you got Jonathon Long, and Owen Caissie, all having just absurdly impressive years in AAA. And I guess without digging super, super deep into this, who's your prediction? Who would you give the award to right now? And is that different than who you predict will win the award at the end of the year?
I'm glad you framed the question that way because I was going to go that direction anyway. I will say that I will make it a two-man race. I think either Owen Caissie or Johnny Long's going to win the award this year. I think they've separated themselves a little bit. I think Ballesteros' major league time sort of hurts him in that like award.
And Bally's won 2 straight years, right?
He definitely won last year.
I think he's won 2 straight years. So this would be his 3rd straight, which is also probably working against him a little bit.
It absolutely is. I would give the award to Owen Caissie. And what I will say is whoever has the better, call it OPS from here out, is who I think will win it.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll say Johnny Long wins it. for two different reasons. One, because I think there's a decent chance Caissie spends September in Chicago. We'd have to see, they only get one hitting edition, and there's a case for Caissie, there's a case for Ballesteros, and there's a case for Kevin Alcantara. So I don't know that Owen Caissie will get there, but he has a good chance to. And Johnny Long does not. Johnny Long will play the rest of the season in Iowa. So some of those counting stats, I think if you were projecting them out, you'd project Johnny Long has more RBIs the rest of the way. You'd project he has more runs the rest of the way. And so I'm going to guess that it ends up being him. And the other reason is just if you can give a guy who doesn't have as many accolades in the prospect department that award, just to give that sort of confidence going into the offseason, I think there's real benefits. Owen Caissie knows what the Cubs organization thinks about him. They've given him opportunities in spring training and added him to the 40-man roster and all those things. Johnny Long has a little bit less of that. And so if you can give him that award, I think that helps build some confidence going into the offseason. And so I would guess that it's going that direction, but I think it's going to get played out on the field in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, you convinced me. I'm all in on that way of thinking. Moises this year has a 119 OPS plus, Johnny Long 120 OPS plus, and Owen Caissie at 127 OPS plus.
Yeah,
and so they're all damn good, man. They're all really, really good, and that's been fun to see them basically from game one to how many minor league 140 is that what it is, or 150 AAA games, whatever it is. From game 1 to 150, like they have all been really, really impressive, and that's been fun to watch from a prospect's perspective. I know that we're from a major league perspective saying, all right, get Moises Ballesteros or Owen Caissie or even Johnny Long up in the major league lineup to help boost this lineup a little bit. But like the Iowa Cubs have had a lot of really impressive offensive performances this year. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that Owen Caissie is it right now. You convinced me on the Johnny Long might take it because of the Owen Caissie potential promotion and Jonathon Long just kind of wrapping up. Because right now, like it's the power numbers that Owen Caissie has over Johnny Long up to this point, right? The Owen Caissie as of right now has a 564 slug to Johnny Long's 494. So he's got 60, 70 points on him there. But Johnny Long is leading in the batting average and OBP department. So yeah, if he keeps tacking on a few extra doubles and home runs, then he might get there.
Well, and of course, like we need to point out that this is not an award that has any real criteria. This is not. If Owen Caissie ends up with an OPS 100 points better than Johnny Long, Long could still win the award if that's sort of what's decided internally makes the most sense. But I mean, there are baseball reasons that it's those two. Long leads the system in hits and RBIs. Caissie leads the system in home runs. Or actually, I think he's one behind Carlos Perez, but among prospects, leads in home runs and runs scored. I saw Owen Caissie leads the system, which is pretty cool. So yeah, those guys have had fantastic years. They'll be worthy winners, whichever one finishes the year strong.
I don't know, man. I live and die by the minor league hitter of the year award. So I'm going to be on the edge of my seat.
But yeah, we need to bring we need to bring some real criteria to this award. Right? That's the purpose of this podcast.
I'll see if I can reach out and see when they're awarding that when they're handing that award, so we can have a live show to react to that award.
Yeah, everyone's nominating you for jobs within the Cubs organization these days. I'll nominate you as host for the awards ceremony.
There you go. I'm up for it. I'll do it. All right, Bryan, where can we listen, or where can we find you? Where can we read some of your work?
Yeah, I'm writing the rest of the year on Substack. It's called 5 Cubs Things. Give that a follow if you guys don't mind. Every Monday the rest of the season there'll be a newsletter in your inbox if you care to have it. So I'd love to have you along for the ride.
Hitting the inbox at 120 every Monday, and they've been awesome so far this year. I've loved every second of reading those. Those I would highly recommend anybody out there listening to check those out. You can find him over on social media, on Twitter, on the 1060 West Discord channel. You can find me as well at Out of the Vines. We're talking in the Cubs prospect channel over on 1060 West. If you're looking for an invite to that to talk prospects or Major League Cubs, reach out to that guy. Reach out to Bryan, and he can provide you a link to join. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll be back in your ears in one short week.
Go Cubs.